Healthcare with Huncho. It's the only show with all facts and no cap.
All right, welcome to episode 5 of Healthcare with Huncho. We got a good one tonight. Our guest tonight is Mark Smith Pharm D. Welcome to the show, Mark. How you doing tonight?
Man, I feel good. Thank you so much for having me, man. It really means a lot.
Hey, respect. I'm glad you're on the show tonight. Let's get right into it. So just tell us about yourself. Tell the audience what you do. And we all know you're a pharmacist, but what is a pharmacist, and kind of let them know the capacities in which you work in.
For sure. So in a very general sense, the pharmacist is basically the dispenser of the medication. So in this team,
the legal drug dealer.
The legal drug dealer, yeah.
The legal drug dealer.
for sure. Got to put the legal in front of it. So in this team of healthcare and team of healthcare providers, everyone plays a crucial role as far as I'm concerned. When it comes down to providing a diagnosis, which is what the physicians do, nurses taking care of the patient, which is what they do. Once a patient brings a prescription to the pharmacist, you can consider the pharmacist as the delivery, I guess, tool, if you will, of the medication to the patient. So playing a key role in the dispensing of that is what, in a general sense, I would say a pharmacist does. Now, within pharmacy, there's so many different types of avenues in which a pharmacist can pursue. If I can just talk about myself, for example, if I may.
You may.
I've been involved in several aspects of pharmacy, whether it be the traditional community setting, that'll be your typical CVS's, Walgreens, et cetera. Those are the pharmacists that are more visual, that are more visible to the public eye. And those are the ones that, when you hear the term pharmacist, that's what the public generally thinks of, right?
The guy behind the counter.
The guys behind the counter, right.
The guys behind the counter.
Arguably one of the most accessible healthcare providers out there, because you can go to a pharmacy 24 hours out of the day in some cases, right? To get some sort of expert advice from the medication experts. But it goes much deeper than that as far as I'm concerned. You have the hospital setting, which is responsible for keeping the patient basically alive and keeping them going from a medication standpoint. You have long-term care. Of course, you're familiar with that. You have pharmacists that are in the long-term care settings that are responsible for keeping a closer eye on medications that are considered high risk, and so we have that geriatric population that they look at. You also have the industry being like the drug companies, your big pharma, as they're often called. I've spent some time in big pharma as well, which is whether it be on the research side of it, the developing of new products, or if it's in the selling of the actual product, networking with physicians and nurses and different types of offices to promote the product that is going to be sold. And then you also have the outpatient setting, which is kind of what has kind of drilled my passion for pharmacy. When I graduated from Auburn in 2012, I went into a residency practice wherein it was in the outpatient setting where we worked alongside with physicians, nurses, social workers, et cetera. And it was really a one-stop shop for the patient in terms of getting the care that they need, not only from a diagnosing standpoint, not only from a nursing standpoint, not only from a pharmacy standpoint, but from a complete overall picture. It was a one-stop shop. And doing that residency training for that 1 year allowed me to see a pharmacist's role in this big healthcare picture.
Got something to share with you. More so, I got something to ask you. Are you taking anything for immune defense? No? Well, I am. I take Immunity. What is Immunity? Immunity is the Advanced Defense System supplement. And boy, does this stuff work. Why does it work? What does it have in it? Let me tell you. It has vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D3, garlic bulb, elderberry, and echinacea. So what does all those things mean? Well, if you wanted a supplement to compare to all the things that's packed into it as far as ingredients, you would spend a crazy ton of money. One bottle, which lasts you about 30 days, is only $15. That is a steal. You can have advanced immune defense for basically 50 cents a day. And in this climate, that's more than well worth it. For you to take these supplements will be equal to 18 eggs, 250 almonds. The vitamin C on it will be equal to 4.5 oranges. That's 43 strawberries. The antioxidant value on this is actually 3,300 blueberries. Now, I don't know about you all. I don't have time to eat that many fruits and vegetables. I'm always on the go, and I'm always in a position to where I'm exposed to some of the most horrendous things you can think about as far as immune defense. So I always got to be prepared. I always got to be on guard. And you can be as well. So go get you a bottle of Immunetic and tell them Huncho sent you. Do you take? Do you take? Immunetic?
All right, welcome back to Healthcare with Huncho. We have Mark Smith, PharmD on. So at the break, Mark, we talked about rural healthcare, some of the challenges. We hit on topics of the pandemic, but just going a little bit more in depth from your perspective, talking about vaccinations and drugs and things being used. Now, I know working with physicians and speaking with physicians, when it comes to COVID-19 coronavirus, there doesn't seem to be a care pathway that says this happens, use X drug.
Right.
Could you just kind of tell us some of the drugs that are on the market and why have these drugs just now made the forefront in treatment? Because it seems to be nothing new. You know, we're a long way from a vaccination, and now we're just pulling what's in the back of the medicine cabinet for it seems like.
Yeah, it's certainly if depending on which media outlet you're looking at, it certainly looks that way for sure.
Right.
But I think when it's all said and done, Dennis, truth be told, this is a new disease. So a lot of it is going to be let's see what works, let's see what doesn't work, and with that you're going to have some success and you're going to have some failures. Case in point, hydroxychloroquine. It got a lot of publicity in the early stages because, oh my God, you know, we might have the cure for COVID-19. We might have the cure for coronavirus. Well, some of the latest literature is finding out that maybe this isn't the one. Maybe this isn't the one. Maybe the risk to benefit isn't necessarily worth it because of the adverse side effect profile that this particular medication contains. So I think as a general rule, the idea that, or the fact that this is a new drug, it's going to present a host of challenges because we're not going to find one particular solution right away. It's going to be some trial and error. So I think that the trial and error that we're experiencing right now as a nation, as a world, or as a world is pretty much expected, right? I mean, like it's not like we're discovering penicillin or something like that. I mean, it's not, I think what people are expecting is a eureka, we have it moment. And my And my message to the listeners is pump your brakes, because it probably won't happen until maybe the vaccine becomes available. Because I think that that's really the only thing that's going to really protect us long term and give us that long term immunity from this coronavirus, because it's going to come. It's going to come every year. But I think that once the vaccines start pumping out and start rolling, that it'll greatly contain it. But I certainly don't believe that there's going to be one drug that is going to say, pow, we have it. They tried to do it with hydroxychloroquine, because there was a big push for, oh, this is the one that's going to fix it. You know, you combine the hydroxychloroquine with the azithromycin, this is going to do it. You know, we don't see that much nowadays. Or let's just say dexamethasone, which has been around, like to your point, which has been around for ages. You know, dexamethasone isn't a new drug, but if you let the media tell it, oh man, this is the next best thing since sliced bread, right? You know, so it's just
right.
That's just it's just not the case. But I think that speaks to a larger issue, Dennis, of, you know, education. And I think that, you know, we as healthcare providers, we have that responsibility of explaining to the patient that, hey, you know, this particular medication, dexamethasone, is really responsible for controlling the infection and getting the breathing back functioning properly. I mean, it's not, you know, if a person has COPD and they get admitted for an exacerbation, they're going to probably get dexamethasone. With coronavirus, I mean, it attacks the lungs. It naturally makes sense to give them dexamethasone. So like, it's not a groundbreaking discovery. Now we're grateful for it, right? We're definitely grateful for it, but it's not a groundbreaking discovery. And again, definitely want to pump the brakes on the whole, you know, we're going to find the one golden ticket to fixing coronavirus, which I don't think is possible. Now with remdesivir, there's a large amount of promise. And the reason I say that the promise is because they're pushing out remdesivir without going through the proper FDA approval like process, right? Because, you know, typically when a right. new drug comes out, it usually takes a while before it hits, you know, before it even gets FDA approval or to get FDA right. consideration for approval. So why is it happening with remdesivir? Well, my clinical opinion is that they really truly believe in it. You know, they have been seeing some results in it, to the point where you combine a pandemic that we have and say, hey, we got something that definitely works better than Plaquenil, definitely works better than hydroxychloroquine. Let's just go ahead and get this thing out there. So, you know, some of the typical jumps and hurdles that it would normally go through, we see
like
that
human testing and and kind of prolonging that process.
Yeah. Well, the extended human testing, I would say, because I'm pretty sure like they did some human testing on it, but the FDA wants you to do multiple extended testing, right. You know, multiple human studies to show the effect.
It'll probably still be an animal.
Oh my God, yeah. Absolutely, 100%. But I also think, I mean, there's in my opinion, Dennis, there's a silver lining, because it shows, okay, we recognize how serious this condition is, or we recognize the importance of coming up with a solution to this problem, or a potential solution to this problem that we have. In anything that we know, if it as long as it has a tolerable safety profile, meaning that the adverse effects aren't as bad, because the adverse effects for hydroxychloroquine are very close to bad. I mean, it's tough. Like, it's a host of undesirable side effects.
Give us a couple of those. You know, you don't have to go into the full.
But give us a couple of those. Yeah, I mean, multiple organ failure is like, you know, like the thing. Trouble with vision. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's an anti-malarial drug, so like it's gonna attack very, very heavily. So like you talk about the extreme cases of multiple organ failure, you know, kidney, and then vision. I mean, it's a very undesirable side effect profile, but it's higher than your typical side effects that you would get from another drug. So like your chances of getting those side effects increases, as opposed to just, a non-hydroxychloroquine type of agent. So very, very undesirable. But what they're finding out with remdesivir, minimum side effect profile, which in the FDA's mind points towards safety. So this is a potentially safe medication. So I
can easily push that. That's an easy.
You can
push,
easily push exactly. That's exactly right.
Push.
That's exactly right. Now again, that's just my opinion, because I think that the FDA above all wants to do this very safely. And as a healthcare provider, I support that. I definitely support the safety number one. I mean, if you have to weigh we always talk about risk versus benefit, risk versus reward, all those types of things. And I think that with remdesivir, we're finding out that there's a minimum safety risk versus a potential benefit as well, which is why we saw the expedited push for remdesivir. And I think that in terms of prescription type medications, that's about it. The other medications that I had prepared to talk to you about are essentially OTC medications that are designed to essentially keep your immune system boosted, or if you were to develop like a common cold or something like that.
Hold up, Mark. Yeah. Before you go into those, because I know it's a hot question. The audience is probably dying to hear this. Mm-hmm. So you're saying Clorox bleach won't work for you? Is what you're saying?
I'm saying that if you use Clorox or bleach, then COVID-19 is the least of your problems. I'm saying that if you're using Clorox or if you're considering using Clorox or bleach, then coronavirus is the least of your worries. You probably need to be looking at some sort of mental facility or a mental checkup. And I mean that too. I mean, like, I seriously mean that. But, what we find out is that, we saw it. It's a potential issue. I mean, there were multiple calls given to to poison control. People were, seriously doing those things. And that just goes to show you the power of media. If, those that are in power, the type of message that they deliver goes into the ears of the followers. If it's not interpreted correctly, then it could lead to catastrophic effects. So, I mean, I definitely, it's certainly nothing to take light of, but at the same time, you have to, these patients have to be mindful. And I think it speaks to the larger picture of education. I think it speaks to the larger picture of the lack of education and the lack of information that is being given to the public, so that's just my take on that.
All right, so let's transition back. I know you had a couple of things that, some things that the audience can take over the counter. I think that's a huge deal, whether it's talking about, boosting that immune system.
Sure.
I had my aunt, my mama, everybody call me, make sure you take your garlic, your ginger root, make a tea. All those home remedies, take a shot of Crown, get in the bed, pull the cover. Exactly. Those things. So, just give us something, to where we can actually, better ourselves and put ourselves in a good position. Because what I've learned as a healthcare professional, it's not when, it's not if you're exposed to coronavirus, it's when you're exposed to coronavirus. This thing is moving so rapidly, so quickly, that at some point you need to make sure that you're at your best if and when you come in contact. So
100% agree with you. And I would just add to that is, when I'm making recommendations, I'm looking at it from a community pharmacist point of view. Like, what would I recommend if I was behind the bench, like if I was behind the counter working at a community retail pharmacy? Because, prior to coronavirus, those questions were still being asked, like that general question of what can I take to help my immune system grow, if you will, or to help my immune system, to help my immune system get better. And typically when I was working behind the bench, I would just say, you want the short answer or you want the long answer? Short answer is that there is no one medication, prescription or non-prescription, that's going to directly work on increasing immunity, because the term immunity is such a broad term. I mean, are we talking about immunity in terms of white blood cells? Are we talking about immunity in terms of fighting an infection? Like, what type of immunity are we talking about? So the answer essentially, number one, is no, but there are certain agents that you can take on a regular basis prior to, or the clinical term is prophylactically, that you can take in order to prevent you from, catching an upper respiratory tract infection, which is the ones that I have listed, or they reduce the severity or duration once you get a upper respiratory tract infection. And to be quite honest, several of them I think I have 4 that I typed up for you, Dennis, but I think 3 of the 4 are fairly common. The first one is probably the most common: vitamin C, right? So you talk about vitamin C, which has been around for ages, whether it is available in pill form, liquid form, or in a big glass of orange juice. Vitamin C has been one of the most popular over-the-counter items for increasing, if you will, a person's immunity. And they have done some studies on it in the past, but since vitamin C doesn't make a lot of money, you probably won't see any studies on vitamin C. Just to kind of give you an insight as to how these studies work, like they won't do investigational studies on vitamin C because it doesn't generate profit. I mean, that's something that they won't tell you, but it's probably true. Like it's definitely true, because it's just been around for so long. Typically, I recommend that patients take it regularly, like take it before you get sick. Like if you take vitamin to help build up that immunity, so that if and when you do get an infection, it reduces the duration and it lessens the severity of that acute respiratory infection, which is typically like when I say acute respiratory infection, I mean your common cold, your influenza, your common cold, essentially, right?
Normal things, everyday thing you come across.
100%. And I like vitamin C primarily because of its safety profile. Like you can't overdose on vitamin C. It's a water soluble tablet, which means that it passes through the urine. So, you can.
That's something I did not know. I did not know, because most people say you can take too much of a vitamin, or too much is bad for you.
Yeah, okay. Nah. You'll just pass vitamin C through the urine. It's like I said, it's called a water soluble vitamin. So any excess, as long as you have minimal to average kidney function, it'll just pass through the urine, no problem at all. And so that's one of them. Like, so vitamin C is definitely one of the most encouraged antioxidants that's available that a patient can take over the counter. The second one is probably one that has become trendier, if you will. I'm not sure if trendier is a word, but I'm gonna stick with it. It's
a word on the show. Trendier.
It's trendier. It's definitely trendier.
Hey, production, put that across the bottom of the screen. Trendier.
Trendier. That's right. So this one here has shown immune qualities. It's called elderberry. Have you heard of elderberry before?
I have heard of elderberry.
Okay.
I still don't know what it's trendy. The hype was there. It sounded like it did something. Hey, it didn't hurt me for taking it. So I need to know why now.
Absolutely. So elderberry has been taught it as of lately because of its antibacterial and antiviral properties. So it operates along that same line of vitamin C in terms of it reducing the severity of your respiratory tract infection and reducing the duration of it. So again, disclaimer, it's not gonna prevent you from getting a cold, but if you happen to get a cold, it can work on greatly reducing the severity and the duration of it. It has gotten popular as of lately, so you see it trending a lot because it's available in liquid form. So obviously it's easier to ingest, if you will. So liquid and capsule form is how it's readily available. And just as a quick word of reference, I certainly would recommend, especially during this time here in coronavirus, I would recommend a patient to take it. Like if someone came to me, if I was working in a community pharmacy and they say, "Hey, what do you think about elderberry?" And I would be like, "Yeah, go for it." Elderberry vitamin C combination. Because anything, because at this point, anything that is going to reduce the severity of these respiratory tract infections, anything that's going to reduce the duration of these upper respiratory tract infections, I consider to be a benefit, right?
And what we're seeing now, you have asymptomatic people having long-term damage, especially in their respiratory system, in their lungs, from getting the virus. So definitely you want to have every single line of defense you can in play.
I completely agree. And just as a sidebar, that's actually, as a healthcare provider, that's one of my chief concerns. I mean, I do think the vaccine is going to come and, do a great job, if you will. It's going to do a great job as long as the general population is open to taking the vaccination. I know it's a hot topic about to vaccinate or to not vaccinate. Maybe that's a topic for later. I'll be glad to chime in. But I think once the vaccine becomes available, it will do a number on the number of infected individuals. The problem is what happens to those that have been affected by coronavirus. Since this disease is so new, Dennis, we don't know what the long-term effect is going to be.
We
don't know. And so again, as a healthcare provider, that's where I'm concerned at, because you have healthy individuals. I mean, it was alarming enough to have healthy individuals ultimately get diagnosed with coronavirus and succumb to the disease, right? That's bad enough. But what about the one? But what about the ones that get infected? They survive it, but their lungs are just charred up from the attack of the infection. How does that look 5 years from now? How does that look 10 years from now? How does that look 1 year from now?
Sharks, my name is Noel Dirty, and I'm here seeking $225,000 for 15% stake in my company, Twisted Up Combs.
All right, Mark, just in closing and wrapping up things here, I know you shared a lot of knowledge with us. Definitely the listeners thank you for coming on the show. I personally thank you on the show. But just tell us something about Mark Smith, what Mark Smith is doing. I know you got your own platform. You're working on a lot of things in your agenda. Man, looking at your resume, you're in a lot of avenues, doing a lot of things. So just tell us some of the things that you're working on.
Absolutely, Dennis. Well, first of all, I definitely wanted to give it a just recognition of the respect and admiration that I have for you, both professionally and personally, knowing the history that you and I have together. I mean, to watch you or to watch us grow from the college years to where we are now, and looking at where we'll be, years from now. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your platform first and foremost, and just a huge amount of admiration and respect that I have for you, brother, first and foremost. So
thank you for that. Thank you for that.
100%, man. So the pleasure's all mine. And so the thing that I really have going on, we talk about, one of the things I feel like I've said a good bit of the time, talking with you this evening, has been education, right? There's so many different barriers when it comes to a situation like medication adherence. Like I've been, for as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in the term medication adherence. And so it's a complex problem. It costs hundreds of billions of dollars. Like it's costing hundreds of billions of dollars. And there are many, many barriers associated with it. And my responsibility that I've taken upon myself is to get into the avenue of education, and more specifically, not just passing out pamphlets or writing down, facts about drugs that a person might need, but I want to evolve to where we are today as a society. And that is using the media platform to provide education about some of these commonly prescribed medications, and also dispelling some of the myths that's associated with it. So with that being said, one of the things that I am launching next month, August the 14th, 2020, I will be launching a podcast that is centered around medication education. Some of the most, like, we're going to be going over some of the most commonly prescribed medications, and going over some of the ones that the viewers may have questions about. And we're going to do it in such a way, Dennis, where the retention level is going to be high. Like, I don't want to, just sit in front of a microphone and talk about the effects of metformin. It's going to be a very entertaining, a very engaging type dialogue with a set structure, which is kind of why it's taken so long, because there's so many, there's such a structure that has to be involved, because it's, quite frankly, never been done before. So that's why I'm kind of excited about it too. But provide the information in such a way where it can be delivered with quality, delivered with success, and delivered and shared to platforms such as yours. Obviously working with you, working with other platforms, collaborating with other platforms, drug companies, hospitals, etc., to give the patient a sense of empowerment, to give the patient a sense of responsibility when it comes to their medications specifically. So that's the avenue, that's the niche that I found myself in. And that's the niche, starting August 14th, we're going to release that to the public. And so very, very excited about this project, and working on it for a long time behind the scenes, and looking forward to putting it into fruition next month.
Hey, Mark, that is some great stuff. Glad to share my platform with you. You got to come back. Love people who want to be pioneers in the industry. And together we're cowboys, and we'll ride off into the sunset.
Healthcare with Huncho. It's the only show with all facts